In this video, I'm going to tell you guys things I wish I knew when I started programming. I'm making this video because there's all of these lessons you learn and realizations you make throughout years and years of coding experience. So for people who are getting interested in learning how to code, or maybe if you're in those beginning stages of becoming a programmer, I'm just going to give you all of these lessons I've learned and things that I've learned over time that I kind of wish I knew from the beginning. Now, I have made a video like this before where I kept it down to 5 major themes, but in this video, I'm just going to rattle off a ton of different misconceptions and things that I originally thought that were completely wrong, and just things that you guys might be thinking about coding that might not actually be true. Okay, so one of the first things I thought when I decided to learn how to code is I watched The Social Network and they made it seem cool and you build an app and then you become a billionaire. And that's not true. Coding is not a get-rich-quick scheme. Being a programmer is a lot of hard work, and the media likes to portray that, oh, well, these geniuses, they come in, they're savants, they don't have to work hard, they're just effortlessly hacking into mainframes and systems, effortlessly building billion-dollar companies. That's not the case. Every single person that learns to code and becomes a programmer is going to have to put in long hours of hard work, developing skills, learning things, and only after time and with a little bit of luck is where success is going to come into play. Now, with that being said, I do think that almost everybody can learn to code by putting in the hard work and effort to learn. So there's a spectrum of thought on becoming a programmer, I think, originally for people. That's too hard, only geniuses can do that, or I'm going to be a genius and I'm going to build a billion-dollar company. You know, those are the two radical ends of the spectrum. And a realistic view is it's somewhere in the middle. Almost anyone can probably do it if they just practice enough and stick with it and stay focused. While also it's going to be a lot of hard work and you're not going to become a millionaire overnight. The next thing I wish I knew when I started programming is that it definitely changes the way you think just on a day-to-day basis about everything in your life. So there's a lot of logic and analytical thinking you're going to have to be doing when you're learning to code, when you're going through school or courses. If you're coding every single day, you're going to be thinking more analytically, you're going to be thinking more logically, and you're going to be optimizing things constantly. So then that transfers over into your day-to-day life, and it kind of gets incorporated into your personality where you're thinking a little bit more logically, which isn't a bad thing, but it could have some downsides if you don't want to be that kind of person. If you don't want to be thinking analytically or logically all the time about situations, things on just a day-to-day basis, or when you communicate with others, this could affect that. And being logical has its upsides and downsides, where obviously it's a positive in so many different scenarios. It's going to be really beneficial to your life to think logically and analytically a lot of the time, but also ignorance is bliss. And some people might be happier without hardwiring their brains in that logical way. So before you get into coding long term, just be aware this could definitely change you as a person and how you think completely. Another thing you should know is it can also change your life completely, and like not only in that way, but financially and opportunity wise and the people that you interact with on a day-to-day basis. It's really a lifestyle kind of thing to become a programmer. Basically, if you imagine a programmer in your head and you don't like that, well, that might be what you become. So maybe it's not for you. Another thing I really wish I knew when I started programming is that advanced terminology, advanced vocabulary, it's used a little bit more than it needs to be used when we're talking about coding, when we're talking about communication, reading in textbooks. When things are being explained, it seems tougher to understand, or things seem more difficult when you're trying to grasp certain concepts, and you make them out to be more difficult in your head because of this advanced terminology and vocabulary that's being used to explain the stuff to you. So a lot of the times when you don't understand things and things seem very complicated, it's because it's not being explained to you properly, and you should look for other resources or talk to other people. If something's really hard to understand, it might legitimately just be the way that it's being explained to you using this advanced vocabulary that might not need to be used in that scenario. Now, contrary to that, another thing I wish I knew when I started programming is I would think of simpler ideas in my mind, like, oh, I'm going to code self-driving cars. I'm going to code an app. I'm going to code this website. It's going to take me 3 days. It's going to take me 10 days. It's going to be easy to do all this. Those are much more complicated. A lot of the things that seem like I'm just going to work on this and like I'm going to work on these cool things, I'm going to contribute to these, I'm going to make so much progress on these. Like a lot of people think they can come in and build an apps for the App Store so quickly, or build their own website so quickly after learning. It should be this easy after you learn how to code. A lot of these projects are so complicated. That's why companies hire hundreds and hundreds of engineers, and they're making small progress every single day. People are working on small features for months at a time that don't even impact the software that much. So there's a lot that goes into coding, and you might not really expect that, and you might think that the pace of development is going to be faster than it is. Things are developed very slowly. It requires a lot of work, and a lot of the time it's not that fun. It can be very tedious, and it can be very boring. Another thing I wish I knew when I started programming is you have to get yourself out there. You should be on social media. You should be getting a high quality resume, high quality portfolio, get on every social media, start posting developer content. You're going to be marketing yourself. This is going to give you more opportunities to get jobs. And you want to do this as early on as you can, because it's a very long-term thing to put yourself out there and grow a brand. Another thing I wish I knew when I started programming is that I shouldn't have wasted so much time coding a portfolio website when I could have used something like Wix Studio, for example. Wix Studio makes building and developing for the web really easy. They have a bunch of different portfolio templates. It's a no-code platform. You can get up and running with a high-quality modern portfolio without even coding, although you can add custom code if you want to. And that's just the route I would go nowadays, is using Wix Studio to create my portfolio. Instead, I spent like months coding my portfolio back in the day. And that was really a waste of time when I could have been working on other things, learning new technologies, and building other projects. Another thing I wish I knew when I started programming is that soft skills, or whatever you want to call it, is extremely important. It's about as important as coding. Being likable, being able to communicate, networking with others, all of these things are just as important as coding to become successful. So I used to think like, oh, it's only about skills. I don't have to be nice to people. All I have to do is sit and become the best coder, and then the companies are going to want me. They should be glad to have me. But companies don't want to hire people that are annoying to be around, tough to work with. It's going to make for passive-aggressive environments, which, by the way, never be passive-aggressive. Just say what's on your mind. Don't judge people. Don't just give people angry looks and build this tension. Just say what's on your mind. If there's problems, always try to communicate those. As far as becoming successful in the world, being likable, having a network, being friends with people, the bigger your network gets. Some people just aren't even deserving of opportunities and are more successful than others just from being likable in the world in general. So being likable, having soft skills, being able to communicate, this is just as valuable as your coding skills. Although you do have to know how to code, or obviously they're not going to hire you. Another thing I wish I knew when I started programming is that once you're good, you don't stay good forever. And this is obviously because of changing technologies, continuous learning. You have to continue learning new things that are introduced to the world, and you have to stay up with current trends and technologies. Yeah, all of that stuff, obviously. But not only that, you need to practice coding. I would compare it similarly to skateboarding for me. I took 5 years off of skateboarding, and I used to do all these tricks, 360 flip, double heel flip, all these really hard tricks, and 5 years off, and then I get back on it, and I cannot do a lot of those tricks. Now, I can still do the basics. I still have that fundamental understanding because I nailed down those fundamentals, but I'm not really up to date, even with my past skills in the past. So with coding, when you take time off, you are going to lose some of your skill level. And not only that, but you're going to be out of date with the current trends and technology. So you're going to have to get up to date with the new stuff. And you're also even just going to have to catch up with your old self. So that's why it's really a long-term thing. You got to be consistent with coding. Coding is like a really, really long-term lifestyle kind of thing. Another thing I wish I knew when I started programming is don't take on too many things at once. Your mind will get cluttered. You won't get anything done. Focus on one thing at a time. Another thing I wish I knew when I started programming is this isn't the end all be all. At some points in my life, I was a little bit competitive with programming. I wanted to be better than everyone else around me, but there's always going to be somebody better, and this can be a lifelong chase of competition. I mean, if you're a competitive person, you can do that, but it might not be satisfying in the end, and you might want to, obviously try and have a life outside of programming. So that's just a huge list of things that I've learned over time throughout coding, different misconceptions I've had. I wanted to share this and just list off a lot of things to give you guys more of a realistic perception of what being a programmer is really like and what you can expect from it. And so if you're interested in getting into programming, hopefully I gave you made it a little bit more realistic for you just by listing off a bunch of things. Let me know in the comments if you want me to make a part 2 to this video. I could probably list 30 more things that I had misconceptions about and made realizations about. Thank you for watching this video. Please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next one. Peace.